What's good, everybody? This your boy Carlson Irvin. Welcome to the Broad Street Bullies Fantasy Football channel. And today we're going to talk about some takeaways from week 1. And my first takeaway, I want to talk about Tyler Allgeier and Bijan Robinson. I've said this in a video I did. If you follow my page and you looked at my videos, I've said this before, probably months ago or something like that. But I always believed that Tyler Allgeier would get his as well. Like, Bijan's going to get his. We know that. Bijan's going to get his, but we're talking about Atlanta Falcons, a team that run the ball more than half the time. So when you run the ball that much in the offense, the only way Bijan gets extended touches for real is if Tyler Allgeier gets injured or loss of production happens. But this is going to be a backfield. As long as they stay healthy, you're going to have weeks where Tyler Allgeier out snaps or even out carries Bijan Robinson, and then you're going to have weeks where Bijan's going off. That's okay. Like, you can start both of them as it looks right now. Now it's only week 1, so for the Bijan owners, you shouldn't overreact. I mean, you're still going to start them. It's just as simple as that. You're still going to start them. But for them people that had, I drafted Tyler Allgeier in a good amount of leagues because I believed that he was going to get his as well. And I told somebody before, one of my close friends, that he was going to be a worthy flex play. Somebody you can play, especially in deep leagues, if you have multiple flex spots. So, good week for Tyler Allgeier. Bijan did solid too, but Tyler Allgeier outpaced him, and I mean, that's okay. My second takeaway is the Aaron Rodgers injury. Man, that sucks. Aaron Rodgers going down. I know, me personally, I didn't draft him, and I don't think I have. I think I maybe have him in like one league as a backup QB, as my second QB. But I didn't draft him in a lot of leagues. My focus was getting high upside mobile QBs. I tend to target like mobile QBs from my first quarterbacks and stuff like that. I do have pocket passers such as Justin Herbert and Joe Burrow and stuff like that. But it sucks for Aaron Rodgers, and this is one of those things where I know a lot of people see Aaron Rodgers as a snarky person, whatever, maybe cocky a little bit, but I felt bad for him. I truly felt bad for him. I felt bad for him more than the Jets fan base, but I feel bad for the Jets fan base in a sense too. But I truly felt bad for him because it's like, I thought he was going to have a solid year. I didn't draft him in a lot of leagues only because I wanted a certain archetype of QB, but I thought he was going to be solid in a lot of leagues. And it sucks for fantasy owners who have to, if they don't have any good options, they have to go, towards the waiver wire to fill them spots. Another takeaway, J.K. Dobbins. I had J.K. Dobbins in a couple of leagues, not too many, but a couple of leagues. I didn't draft him in any of my pay leagues because I seen him as a risky option. I do got him in one pay league, but it's a real low-level pay league. But even when I drafted him in the offseason, I knew that he was a risky pick. And I feel bad for J.K. Dobbins simply because, he tore his ACL like less than 2 years ago. Had injury problems last year. He finally comes back and seems like he has some momentum. He scored a touchdown, and then next thing you know, he tore his ACL. And at 24, he's still young enough to bounce back from it, but there's a chance that his career probably will never be the same. So for all the J.K. Dobbins owners out there, it sucks. It definitely sucks because he was one of the RBs you can get in maybe the fourth to sixth round, depending on the size of your league, maybe even 7th round, that could possibly produce RB1 value and be a high, he was a high upside, high risk, high upside type player. So that sucks for him. It really does. Going to the next one, Brandon Ayuk. I was high on in a lot of leagues. I got him as like my second wide receiver in a lot of leagues. We seen last year that he outplayed Debo. Yeah, Debo had injuries, but he outplayed Debo. And week 1, he outplayed Debo as well. He got, if I'm not mistaken, 8 receptions, 132 yards, 2 touchdowns. Now, is that going to be the case every week? Probably not, but for the most part in your fantasy football season, throughout the last 13 weeks remaining until playoff, I think he's going to be pretty solid. I believe he's going to be a solid option, and he's going to outplay his value. If I'm not mistaken, most drafts I was getting him in the 5th, 6th round, maybe 7th, depending on the league or the size. So he's off to a good start. Another takeaway, Jalen Hurts and the Eagles offense. First, I want to talk about Kenny Gainwell, DeAndre Swift, and Penny. And I've said this, surprisingly, Rashad Penny was out. He was inactive. He was out. I'm not sure if he was dealing with injuries or it was just a coach's decision. But he was out, and Kenny Gainwell led the Eagles when it came to touches, and DeAndre Swift only had like 1 or 2 touches or something like that. And I didn't expect him to get that little bit of touches. But at the same time, I've said this in my previous videos when I broke down the Eagles running back room from a fantasy football perspective. Y'all can check that video out too. It's there. I said that it was going to be games where Kenny Gainwell is a Kenny Gainwell game, is a DeAndre Swift game, or it's a Rashad Penny game. Because I am a diehard Eagles fan. Me as an Eagles fan, I watch the Eagles all year, so I know how their offense runs. And they're not like, they're not a truly run-heavy team, but they can be a run-heavy team during, depending on the game script, if they get out the early leads and stuff. But I told people that this was going to be one of them confusing backfields. So it's like if you drafted DeAndre Swift, I said in the video, if you draft DeAndre Swift, you have to account on the fact that it's not going to be his backfield just all the time. Like DeAndre Swift, we get it. I know he can catch passes. He is the most talented RB on the Eagles in the Eagles running back room. But Kenny Gainwell, the Eagles like him. Like Kenny Gainwell outplayed Miles Sanders down the stretch when they was on their way to the Super Bowl. He outcarried them, and in the Super Bowl he got more touches. They basically benched Miles Sanders. So with that being said, it's like, reading reports from training camp, off season headed up to this season, they had Kenny Gainwell as the unofficial starter. Is it going to be like that every week for Kenny Gainwell? Probably not. But for the most part, Kenny Gainwell is going to he's going to have his games. And he had, 14 carries, like 44 something yards and some receptions. He's going to provide PPR value too. Like Kenny Gainwell, as of right now, and I'm not going to, I'm not going to go overdo it with Kenny Gainwell, but he's probably a solid RB3 with RB2 potential, especially if he continues to get more touches than DeAndre Swift and Penny, and continues to get receptions and stuff like that. Every game script going to be different. For Jalen Hurts, A.J. Brown, Devontae Smith, and Dallas Goedert, those are 3 key pieces on the receiving end for fantasy football. So I say don't get too down on them. Jalen Hurts was okay, but the New England's defense came to play, and I don't think this is an indicator of how the Eagles' offense is going to be throughout the year. I still think Eagles have one of the best, if not the best, offense in the NFL, and I do look for them to bounce back against Minnesota, who's coming off a 20-16 loss, I think, against the Bucks, which I'm surprised. I expected Minnesota to win that game. But I do think Eagles will get back on track on Thursday, and I think it'll be a little more different. So I still believe that if you have to, like, I have Jalen Hurts and A.J. Brown and Jalen Hurts and Devontae and Dallas Goedert in a couple of my leagues. I'm still starting them with confidence until otherwise. So I say don't get down on the birds. Start all them starters. They're gonna do it for you. So yeah, and other news. Pittsburgh completely demolished San Francisco, and for fantasy valuable players on Pittsburgh like Najee Harris, George Pickens, Deontay Johnson, and Pat Freiermuth, they didn't do too well. You've seen Calvin Austin lead the team in targets, and I do think he's a speculative waiver wire ad. I do plan on adding him in some of my leagues because Deontay Johnson has a hamstring injury, and then Pat Freiermuth, we don't know the status of if he's going to play Sunday or not. It's still early in the week. If I'm not mistaken, I think he had I can't remember what it was listed as, but it's something to keep an eye out on. But you know, if Pat Freiermuth and Deontay Johnson can't suit up, it's going to be Pickens and it's going to be Pickens and Calvin Austin. And you might even see Darnell Washington. So, I mean, he's a speculative ad. Najee Harris really was, like, not really solid for you if you started Najee Harris. Kenny Pickett, who I was high on myself. I was high on drafting him in a couple leagues. He got me looking at him different now. But I'm going to see what he do. I'm going to see what he do. Lamar Jackson, I don't know all the stats, but he didn't really have one of the games you expected of him. But I mean, it's Lamar Jackson, so you're going to start him going forward. I think Baltimore lost, if I'm not mistaken. Did they lose? Who they played? Houston? No, they won against Houston. OBJ had a little catch, whatever, and stuff like that. The Baltimore offense is going to be confusing, especially for the running backs. If you do need a running back because J.K. Dobbins went down, you're looking towards Baltimore, you could pick up either Justice Hill or Gus Edwards. I would probably more than likely pick up Gus Edwards. I think he would be the best pick to pick up, in my opinion. Mark Andrews didn't play, but he should play maybe week 2. So just keep an eye on that. But overall, good week 1. A lot of unpredictable stuff happened. Kyron Williams outsnapped. I would say outsnapped. He outcarried Cam Akers. Now that's a concern in my opinion. I don't have Cam Akers in a lot of my leagues, but I do have him in a couple. But for the people who drafted Cam Akers, that's concerning. Kyron Williams is what you call one of them ads. The guy. What's his name? Puka Canoe or something like that. I don't know if I pronounced his name right. Seattle did his thing. He's going to be a hot waiver wire ad this week and everything like that. Kenneth Walker was okay. He wasn't great, but he was okay. Zach Charbonnet didn't really play a lot. Geno Smith was okay. What else? What else in week 1? Oh, the Dallas Cowboys completely demolishing the Giants. If you had anybody on that team from fantasy, especially Daniel Jones, you was more than likely disappointed. Darren Waller had a couple catches. He was solid. I started Isaiah Hodgins in one of my leagues. That's a deep flex. He didn't really do nothing. Let me talk about Tennessee. Chig Okonkwo, man, goose eggs. I thought that he would be a good start this week. Not at all. Traylon Burks and Chig Okonkwo, sleepers heading into the offseason. Headed into the season, just totally disappointed. Calvin Ridley, welcome back to the NFL. 8 receptions, 101 yards, 2 touchdowns. He got people panicking over Christian Kirk. Trevor Lawrence was solid. Joe Burrow, totally disappointed. T. Higgins with no catches. Drake London with no catches. Drake London, got him in a couple leagues, started him in a couple leagues, but that offense is worrisome because they don't pass. Like, I don't get why you have 2 elite playmakers on your side and they just choose to run the ball. And like, for dynasty purposes, you probably will keep them, but redraft, keepers league, like, who wants to do that? Like, this is a year Drake London should, and I'm not going to say panic on Drake London, but it's very worrisome that they just don't pass the ball. Like, they will have games where they're behind, but they stick into the script. And Kyle Pitts and Drake London, they are the sufferers of that. It's really, like, horrible. If you're looking at Washington, Jahan Dotson was okay. I don't expect him to he led the team in targets, but I do think he'll do better going forward. Brian Robinson was solid. I think Brian Robinson scored a touchdown or two, if I'm not mistaken. So he was solid throughout the week. Who else can I think about? Let me see. Who else balled out? Aaron Jones balled out. Packers fan. He's on the injury report now. I think I can't remember what it was, but that's something to look out for. Romeo Dobbs probably helped people a lot. Jordan Love was balling this week. Justin Fields was okay. Not too great, but was okay. I expect him to pick it up. I do think he'll have more boom weeks than this week. Jordan Love was solid. Mac Jones, QB1 already, week 1. I don't think Mac Jones would do that every week, but in some of my leagues, he's the QB1. He put up a lot of, besides him throwing the pick 6, he was pretty solid in this game against Philly. Who else? Who else am I thinking about? Anybody I think about? I'll probably get more into depth. I will be releasing a podcast. This will be the first episode. I'm going to talk about some fantasy football stuff, get more into depth. Before I do that, I will say, I'm not a stats guy. I'm not going to, I might rip off some stats, but I'm not a stats guy. I can just give you advice from my perspective. You can take it. It's just my opinion. All this stuff is just my opinion. I do consider myself pretty knowledgeable in fantasy football, but all this stuff is just my opinion. So, so look out for that. I should be recording tonight after I get off at work. So I will be dropping a podcast for the channel. It's gonna cover my leagues as well. It's gonna cover my Facebook group, and we're gonna talk fantasy football. All right, I'm out. Like and subscribe.